Hello, hello. Welcome to Admitted, the College Confidential podcast, your spot for talking all things college. My name is Gabby. I'm a student at Case Western Reserve University and a College Confidential ambassador.
And my name is Jon, and I'm the head of community at College Confidential, and we're your hosts. Hi, this is Jon, head of community at College Confidential. I have with me one of our students from the site, iseeusee, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am a student and my College Confidential name is iseeusee, and I just graduated, so I just went through the whole admissions process and I made a thread on College Confidential, so I think some of the people watching might be familiar with my story. And yeah, I'm just here to talk about that.
Great. So let's start at the beginning. How did you find out about College Confidential, and was that before or after you started applying for schools?
Sure. So I found out about College Confidential, I think accidentally. I've been invested in like the college admissions process probably since middle school, I want to say, but I've always known that I wanted to like go to a top university, probably even since like elementary school. And I think one day when I was like searching around about some questions I had about the admissions process, I might have stumbled across like a thread of someone asking that same question. And then I was on the Reddit forums, like applying to college and stuff like that. So I think I also saw some people mention it. And then I became more active when I was looking for answers and just people talking about the schools I was waitlisted at. So I wanted to talk to them about the process and see if anyone got any offers. So that's like around when I started posting about my process and everything. But before then, I was just kind of lurking on the threads and just looking at everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super common thing where you spend a lot of time, I like to call it not lurking, but learning. Because what are you doing? You're reading other people's experiences and trying to figure it out. And then at some point you realize, okay, I've got a little special or unusual situation that no one else has talked about, and I need to, I'd like to get some answers too. So going back in time, you were using Reddit and you'd maybe been learning from College Confidential. And when did you start the actual process of applying for schools?
Well, I mean, that's sort of a loose way to ask it. I think like I've been thinking about it for a long time. Like when I came into my freshman year of high school, I started thinking about what clubs I wanted to join. And like I was already like in that mindset, like I have to do something unique. I can't just be in a bunch of clubs. Like that's not what cuts it out anymore for getting into a top school. So ever since then, like I've been seriously thinking about the admissions process because I knew like once you were in high school, that's really officially like when everything started. I feel like I got more serious about it in my sophomore year because I moved to like a school that was a little bit more competitive. So I was seeing people do these things and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that too. Like I have to get more involved. But really, I think like end of my sophomore year, junior year was like when I got super, super serious about it, when I was starting to make a list of colleges I wanted to apply to. I remember making a college spreadsheet like junior year, maybe end of sophomore year. And I've been using that ever since. So yeah, but really I've just been thinking about the process like since beginning of my freshman year.
Yeah, so you start a Google sheet with like your dates that you have to hit and whether or not you complete requirements, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I had like the name of the school I applied to, what dates the documents were due and the supplements and like how many supplements each school had that I had to do. And then I had like this spreadsheet that you could like put the date it was due. And then like next to it, there would be a column with like how many days you have left. So that's what I used. And then I would just color it like red when I was done with it or stuff like that.
Approximately how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to 20 schools.
20, yeah. So how did the application process go? Were you feeling confident going into it?
In a way, I mean, I personally put a lot of time towards my extracurriculars because I knew like in this day and age, like you really have to make sure that you have unique extracurriculars if you're gunning for like the Ivies or the T20s. because now it's like research internships and doing all these prestigious programs. Like it's not just being president of NHS anymore. Like you really have to do a lot of things. So going into it, like I personally felt like I put a lot of effort into my extracurriculars to make them unique. But obviously, like when you're on Reddit and you spend time on like those forums, or like when you're in the servers and looking at other people's stuff, you kind of get insecure because you're like, well, they have this and I don't have that. So you're just really comparing yourself to everyone else in your grade. So it really sucks. And then also like on Reddit, I found this college results forum and I just kept comparing myself to people from previous years as well. So that was also like something that diminished my confidence a little bit.
Yeah. Is it particularly like the extracurriculars, or were you talking about scores and grades and that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, just like everything, like scores, ECs, everything.
Yeah. So walk me through what happened as you started getting results.
So before I applied, I was on this thread called Chance Me, which I'm pretty sure people are familiar with. I
Yes.
didn't do it on College Confidential. I did it on Reddit. So like compared to like College Confidential, which I feel like is more saturated with parents, on Reddit, there's more like people your age who are chancing you, which is honestly such like a counterproductive process. Like, how is someone else your age chancing you? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, no one's gonna know. But I posted like my extracurriculars and stuff on there because I had plans to early decision to the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. So I was like, chance me for my early decision. And actually people were like, oh, we think you have a good chance. Like we think that you can get in. And then on TikTok, like this one guy who's like really famous, he like saw my post and he also chanced me and he thought I would get in. So like going into the process, I was like, I'm really hoping I get into my ED school. Like I was just so like hung up on it. So when I got rejected, I was literally so upset. And like I had obviously 19 other schools left to apply to because I was doing like regular decision for almost all of them.
Yeah.
And I was just so sad about my early decision rejection that I just kept putting it off because I was like, I just can't, like I don't have the energy to. So after I got rejected, like it took me a while. So over winter break, I was writing like 6 supplements a day. Like that was all I was doing my winter break. So that was definitely really hard. And then since I applied to like a lot of reaches, I feel like they come out near the same time. So it was like the last week of March. I opened like 15, 16 decisions like in a week. Like every single day of that 1 week, I had a decision to open. And pretty much all of them were like rejections. So it was like day after day, I was getting rejected from a school. And it was literally like the saddest thing I've ever gone through. Like I was literally a mess. I just would walk in and sit in my desk, open my computer, and I would just be like, this is probably going to be another rejection. Like I just need to get it over with.
Oh, that's really hard. So these are reach schools for the most part, or were you starting to get rejections from some of your other schools as well?
I kind of did my process very like in a risky way. I applied to like only 2 safeties, so like all my other schools were reaches. Or well, I feel like on College Confidential, at least people would consider the schools I considered safeties like more targets. But at the time I considered them safeties and I ended up getting into them. So that was my experience. So yeah, like pretty much all of those decisions I was opening was from reach schools, which I mean, like, I can't expect an acceptance, but it was definitely still like a hard thing to go through.
Especially one after another. If they, if
Yeah,
you
all
had,
in 1 week too. Like I was like, this needs to be over with. Like I'm so done with this.
yeah, that seems really hard. So when you applied, did you submit test scores, or did you use the test optional method for these?
So I applied test optional to like all the Ivy Leagues, which, I know everyone's probably thinking like, okay, well, that's why you got rejected. But I applied test optional because my highest SAT attempt was a 1440. And that was actually super disappointing because like on all my practice tests, I was getting like 1520, 1510,
Oh my
1530.
goodness. Yeah.
So I was just super disappointed. But at that point, like I think that 1440 was from like really close to application. So I didn't have a chance to take it again. And I was just way too busy to. So I just sort of like gave up. I submitted it to a few schools, I think. Like I think I submitted it to Michigan. And I don't remember if I submitted it to NYU. I submitted it to UNC Chapel Hill and Barnard, I think. But yeah, I did not submit it to like any of the Ivy Leagues.
Do you think that was a good plan, or would you have done things differently?
I mean, obviously, I wish I had a higher score so I could submit it because, that would help. I feel like it's a double-edged sword, honestly, because if you don't submit your score, they kind of assume that, you didn't have a 1500 plus. Like, it's not like they'll be like, oh, well, what if they just didn't want to submit their 1500? Like, that doesn't happen. Like, they know that you didn't get a high enough score and you didn't submit it. So even though technically they're not supposed to count it against you, I still feel like it does because if anything, like submitting a score obviously helps your application. So I wish that happened, especially like I live in a pretty competitive area and mostly everyone here is like super STEM oriented. I'm in business, but like obviously everyone around me is like really into STEM. So given that like most of them have high scores, so I feel like that just kind of went against me.
Yeah, for sure. How did you manage that, especially that week of rejections?
Oh, I don't know. I would just open it and then I would just go cry and then open another one. Like it was just a mess. Like I remember my last like day of decisions, it was three. So I had Stanford, Duke, and Michigan. So I opened Michigan first. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to get into Stanford. Like, that's just not happening. I'm not going to get into Duke because, I mean, both of those schools also don't really have like concrete, like, Stanford doesn't have a business program at all. I just kind of applied because it's
Oh,
Stanford.
interesting. Yeah, of course.
So, yeah. But Michigan, I was like, I feel like I have a shot here because I know some people who got into Michigan and, we have like the same stats, like, we have like same EC caliber. Like, I feel like I have a shot here. And I opened a rejection. So then it was Michigan first, then Duke's, and then Stanford. So it was just like progressively getting harder that day. And then it was over. Like that was my last decision. And I feel like that's when it really hit me. Like I got rejected from all these schools because before I was just like telling myself I just need to get through it. But then at that point it was like actually over. And then I just like gave out. Like I literally was just so sad. I was like crying for like 3 days straight, wouldn't get out of bed. Like I was just so upset.
That's really hard. Yeah. So at the end of when you had all your decisions, what did you have for acceptances?
So I got into my state school, which is University of Maryland, and I got into their scholars program, which
Mhm.
is like a living learning type program, and you get like dorm perks, stuff like that. And that's like I said, in state for me, so it was like the cheaper option. And then I also got into the other like safety I considered on my list, which was George Washington University. And I didn't apply to their honors college, I don't think, but I got their presidential scholarship, which was 22,000 a year, which was their highest merit scholarship. So that was nice. But I ultimately decided to commit to University of Maryland because it's in state, so it's cheaper, and their business school is ranked higher. So I decided it would just be like the better school to go with.
Yeah.
And then waitlists, I had a waitlist from Boston University, Barnard College of Columbia, and then UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay. So you picked your state school, which is I think it's a fine choice. What's your plan for the future? Are you going to do you plan on staying at that school through the end of the degree?
Well, I I mean, I hope like I like it enough to do that. But like, I mean, especially like after I got rejected, I was like, I'm transferring. Like, there's no way I'm staying here for 4 years. And it's not a bad school by any means. Like,
No.
University of Maryland is a pretty good school, but it was just given like how much time and effort I put into my extracurriculars and like how much I cared, it was obviously something disappointing. And I wanted more. I'm not saying I deserve more, but like I obviously wanted more. So my plan was to transfer. I think I still would submit some applications to transfer in next year, but I'm not like trying to count on it. Like if I don't get into any of the schools I transfer like apply to transfer to, it's not going to be like the end of the world for me. Like I made it this year. But I think that like I hope I like it enough to stay there 4 years. But I'm definitely going to try to transfer because I feel like business is a pretty prestige heavy field. I mean, you can accomplish anything with any school, but I still feel like it would be useful to like transfer to a better rated business program just for like the connections and everything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It Yeah, in my opinion, the school that you graduate from is the only one that people really pay attention to. So you can do a lot of like taking GEs um, and some of the foundational courses at a less expensive school, and you'll end up with a higher a higher rate of return, so to speak, because you'll have done all that at a school that is a little less pricey, and then
Yeah, of course. And like, I mean, I think especially after I went through all those rejections, like, and being obsessed with like going to a prestigious school my whole life, my mind just straight went to transferring because I was just like, I need to get there somehow. Like, if I didn't get there this year, I need to next year. And I remember like bringing it up on College Confidential, and some people were really brutal. Like they were like, no, like why would you do that? Like you need to love the school that loves you back. And I was like, you need to shut up. Like I want to do what I want. But I mean, I don't think it's necessarily like wrong to want to transfer, but I do think like at least now I've reached the point where I'm like okay with where I'm going, and like I'm telling myself like I need to take advantage of it and I need to try to enjoy it. Like I can't go in with the mindset like I need to get out of here as soon as possible, because even then like if I don't get into any of the schools I apply to transfer to, then that's going to make me even more miserable. So
yeah, for sure. And you'd be surprised, that first few weeks on campus, you make so many friends because everyone's in the same boat as you are, of like, I don't know anyone here and I want to meet people. And you might end up finding that you actually love the friends that you make there. You love aspects of it that you didn't think about before, and especially close to home. Like there's a school right near where I grew up, and I would have never gone to that because I'd be like, oh no, that's a terrible school. But it's not a terrible school. It's a great school. It just was too close to home. It didn't feel like enough.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
what other sort of advice would you give to people who maybe are starting the process of applying next fall? Maybe what would you have done differently, or what would you suggest people do in your case?
Well, I felt like, I mean, so I felt like I said, I like was obsessing over it my whole life. Like I felt like I made it like a part of my identity. So like when I got rejected from all those schools, I was like, who am I? Like I literally obsessed over this for like, well, extremely over this for 4 years of my life. And then even before that, I was thinking about it. So I just kind of made it like a part of my identity. So like when I got rejected from all those schools, that's why my mind went straight to transferring, because like college admissions was like all I held on to. Like that was all I was working towards. So I didn't really like have an incentive towards anything else. Like every single thing I did was like for college. I mean, and that's not to say that like any of the extracurriculars I did was like not like just for college, because every extracurricular I did was certainly like something that I enjoyed. But like the motivation behind even joining things in the first place was definitely like stemming from college admissions, to be completely blunt. So like I think I would definitely change things, like let myself enjoy the high school experience a little bit more. And I think a lot of people would say that, but I mean, I wouldn't completely just like go crazy, but I would definitely wish I like had let myself like loosen up a little bit, because I remember like my junior year, I had a 4.0 until junior year, and then I was like struggling in AP Calc and AP Econ. So, and I was like, there was other personal stuff going on that like caused my grades to go down. So I just remember like I was going up to my teacher and I literally was bawling my eyes out in front of her. And I was like, please give me an A. Like I can't lose my 4.0. Like I can't. And then I ended up getting bumped down to like a 3.86. And I thought that was the end of it all. Like I thought that was the end of it. I was screwed. I was over with. Like I thought that would ruin me for life. And I just felt like I took things so seriously. And I wish I could tell myself like college is like a holistic process and there's things that are not in your control. Like even now I'm learning like there's things like what school you go to, where you live, like just every single thing comes into play. And there's things that aren't in your control, and that sucks, but like that's what it is, you know?
For sure. I think that's good advice. And I wonder if we come back in a year, if you'll be able to say, I really enjoyed my first year at Maryland, and whether or not you transfer, like I put myself into this place where I was rather than focusing too much on where I might be going.
Yeah, I honestly hope I do that too. Like I just wanna come out of college with like good career aspirations and just like a good experience, because I don't want my life to revolve around the school I'm going to anymore. And like obviously it takes a while to like realize that. And I think I'm still learning. Like even when I made that post on College Confidential, I was like, why did I get rejected from all these schools? Like I was going crazy. Like I was posting that on Reddit too. Like I was asking all these people, I was like, what happened? And I mean, a lot of people were like, wow, we really thought you'd get in. And at one point, like that validation of people saying, like, oh my God, how did you get rejected from that school? Like it helps you. But then at one point, it also just becomes this empty validation that really doesn't do anything. Because
Mhm.
you have to realize, like, no matter how much you cry, no matter how much you complain, no matter how much you say, like, oh, well, X person got into this school and I got rejected, but X person had like nothing and I had everything. But it's like, how that's not going to change anything. Like, it's not like a school's going to like magically listen to all your complaining and be like, actually, we're going to change our minds. Like, we're going to accept you. Like, that doesn't happen. So it just really like is something that you have to realize is like out of your control and you can't change it. And I feel like I still have to accept that. Like, even though it's been like what, like 2 or 3 months now since it happened, like I still have these nights where I get really sad about it and I think about it and I'm just like, how did everything go so wrong? But it's like, it's over. Like I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope that our listeners learned something from your experience. And I think we all enjoyed hearing you talk about what you. I don't know if "enjoyed" is the right word, but we were edified by it. Is there anything else you wanted to mention on the way out, or is everything
Um,
fine?
well, I think I would just say, like, if any parents are listening to this, I think I would just say, like, I think it's really important to be super supportive, not even just throughout like your kids like junior year, but I think like even throughout their entire like academic careers, like in high school and middle school. Because I think like, when I was going through it, I feel like I would only get like congratulated and stuff when it was like this really big achievement. So that's what I measured my worth with. So I think
Mm,
it's just important to like understand, like kids to understand that like no matter where they end up or like no matter what school they get into or like what their GPA is, like they're still worthy and capable of doing like all the things that they want to do.
absolutely, and that's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you for joining me, and maybe we can talk again in the future. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with iseeusee as much as I did. This more or less wraps up our conversations with students and parents in the 2022 to 2023 admission season. Summer is a big break for us, so I'm going to take the next month off from the podcast, and I'm excited about what we have to offer in August. Looking forward to seeing you then.